Alright, people. Review of the week time. So, a lot to get into, a lot to talk about, a lot to review, a lot coming this week as well. It's been an interesting week. It's been, for me anyway, it's been a bit of a up and down kind of week. Hopefully next week is better. Hopefully, fingers crossed, everything gets better next week. But on the plus side, we did have some brilliant fights on last night. Now, I am going to talk briefly about the Jake Paul card. In fact, will I start with the Jake Paul card? Will I start with the card that most people didn't really seem to care too much about? And to be honest, I only really watched the Jake Paul fight, and then we'll get into the really good stuff with the Magnificent Seven straight after. So I think it was this fight, because BoxRec haven't even updated. It happened in Florida, in Tampa, Florida. BoxRec haven't even updated the fights yet. The only one they've updated is the second round stoppage win for Amanda Serrano against Stevie Morgan. That's the only one they have listed, or I should say updated. The rest of them, even though we know the results, they're not updated yet. Chavez Jr. won, I think it was a 6-round points decision against a guy who was 1-0. He's not 1-0 now. Who is this guy anyway? Primetime Uris Hill. I can say that guy's name. Never heard of him. And if you're losing to Chavez Jr. at this point, it's not, good reason. Ashton Slive, I think I say that guy's name. I think he was the guy who got knocked out very badly last night. I think he was the favourite. I only seen highlights of the knockout, and then obviously you have Jake Paul versus Michael Perry. I'll just touch on this really quickly. I won't labour the point on this card for long. Don't worry. Yeah, that fight was Mike Perry sure as hell has heart. He didn't come looking for the payday. He didn't come just lie down. He gave it a go. He had no defense whatsoever to speak of. No defense. Good heart, I'll give him that. Took some good shots. A lot of referees would have stopped it a bit earlier, but he was able to hang in there for 6 rounds. Took a tremendous beating, and Jake Paul did what he needed to do. The size difference in the ring, good God, that was that was bad. That was really bad. That was insane, the size difference. It was absolutely ridiculous. Honestly, Jake Paul looked like a heavyweight in there against a small-ish light heavyweight, someone who could probably make super middle. That's what it looked like in there to me. It was ridiculous, the size difference. No wonder Jake Paul was able to hurt him with every single shot. Crazy. So, yeah, Jake Paul did what he needed to do. You're seeing a lot of fallout from that fight now. You're seeing the likes of Conor McGregor tweeting. You're seeing Mike Tyson tweeting. And obviously, he was meant to be in there with Mike Tyson. Apparently, that fight will still happen. Let's wait and see. You just don't know. Conor McGregor's been, having a go at everyone, really. He says, hey, Mike, you're released and you can go and compete in your smelly, dirty boxing championship. The smell of it, good luck, you're fired. Yeah, Conor McGregor having a go at everybody. He's only had one pro fight and he lost it. And that was against the Floyd Mayweather, who literally came out of retirement and never even really trained properly for the fight. But Conor McGregor, who was meant to have a fight in June and pulled out for reasons we still don't know, who looks like God only knows what he's been taking. That Conor McGregor, who, when is the last time he won a fight? 2020? And before that, when did he last win a fight? So he's won, I think it was 2017, 16? So he hasn't won a fight in a while. So yeah, Conor McGregor doing what Conor McGregor does, talk absolute nonsense, and that's all he ever seems to do, Conor McGregor. Yeah, not a big fan, in case you can't already tell. That was the Jake Paul card in a nutshell. Let's get to the main one. Let's get to the Magnificent Seven. And, I said it before about these shows Frank Warren does, the Magnificent Seven shows. They're very well named. They're very well named, and magnificent they truly are, because he puts on... It's not just the fact, right, that he's putting on very good fights. He's putting names on, and they're in competitive fights. They're in 50-50 fights. They're in fights where you look and you think, ooh, that could go either way. It's very seldom you actually look at these Magnificent Seven shows and you see a fight where you're like, well, it's kind of going one way. I think, was Joe Joyce on a Magnificent Seven? And he was fighting Cash Ali. That was kind of one of those examples where you knew what way it was going to go. But for the most part, you look at these cards, and certainly in the kind of upper echelon, you're kind of like, this could go either way. And there was honestly some great fights on the card. Solomon Dacus got the stoppage win over Michael Webster this time. There was a few people who felt that he won the first fight, Michael Webster. No doubt this time Solomon Dakers was meant to be in there with David Adelaide. David Adelaide, I think he said he had an injury. I can't remember exactly what it was. Could have been a bicep or something like that. I'm not sure. But he got the win over Michael Webster. Rematch left no doubt this time. Zach Parker got a stoppage win over Jack Arnfield. Had him down quite heavily actually as well. Jack Arnfield had him down twice. Yeah, look, Zach Parker's always had decent punching power to his credit. He always has shown to be quite heavy-handed. But Jack Arnfield, I mean, like his day was 6 years ago, if even, maybe longer than that. So, you know, what's that really got to say about Zach Parker moving forward? I've seen some shaky performances from Zach Parker, especially the John Ryder fight. Obviously, we know what happened there. So, yeah, for me, Zach Parker, I just kind of look at him and I'm like, all right, look, the minute you step up, it's going to be tough. It's going to be pretty damn tough. Ezra Taylor got a win last night as well over Carlos Alberto Lamela. I think that's how you say that guy's name. That was a fine fight. Chantel Cameron versus Elhem McHale. I think it's how you say that girl's name. She's French, obviously. And I didn't see this fight, but Carl Frampton was livid that this was a majority decision in the post-fight interview, seen him with Boxing Social. And he was saying that nothing will happen because the right person won, like the right girl won. That was Chantel Cameron. But the judge who scored it a draw, he needs to have a look at himself. Because apparently this was a fairly one-sided run-of-the-mill win for Chantel Cameron. Again, I didn't see it, but judging by the other two scorecards, it looked that way. So to have a draw, you're kind of like, okay, that's a bit strange. But hey, Ashley Lane versus Jack Kane. You know, Ashley Lane was going into this fight as British champion. And, you know, massive credit to Ashley Lane. 10 losses going into this fight. To be British champion with 10 losses, it's just a testament to how he takes his career. You know, he never let them losses hold him back. He was on a good run of form. Obviously picked up the British title. He really did fight the wrong fight in there with Andrew Kane. He stood right in front of him. He tried to trade it out with Andrew Kane. And Kane just had too much firepower. It was simple as that. He really beat up Ashley Lane in there. You kind of could tell after round 4. They were like, yeah, we know what's going to happen. He got through to him in round 5, and that was it. Owen Cooper versus Echo Usman. Now, what a fight. Honestly, that fight right there, the right hand that Owen Cooper dropped Usman with at the end of the 9th round was massive. And like I remember looking at that fight, I knew the result because I was out with my friend at the time. I went out and popped out to my friend at the time, but I was looking at the highlights. And I knew, obviously, Echo Usman won the fight. And I was going and I was like, right, see the knockdown. And then I was like, how did he get up from that to go and stop him in the 10th round? And he did, obviously, but it was incredible. It genuinely was incredible because it was such a big, heavy knockdown. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't just those 2 rounds where you can just say like, oh, it was a great fight through. It was a great, proper domestic dust-up. And yeah, on one of these Magnificent 7 shows, they really do deliver. They really, truly do deliver. And yeah, great fight, honestly. Cannot emphasize that enough. Don't know how Usman got up from that big right hand in round 9, and then he was able to just stop Cooper straight away in the next round. Honestly, it was brilliant. And he probably needed that. Some people were saying that he was behind. They probably needed that, potentially, to come away with the win. But great fight, and, you know, another great fight. Main event, Nathan Heaney versus Brad Pauls. You know, going to this fight, I felt that Nathan Heaney just had to pretty much do what he did first time around, but just not fade late. If he could go and not fade late, he'd be okay. Well. So he started out very well, using his boxing. You know, Nathan Heaney he's someone who I looked at for several years, and obviously he's been fighting on these Queensberry shows for a while. He brings a big fan base from Stoke. His ring entrance is very good, so I've seen him plenty. And originally I kind of looked at him as a gimmick kind of fighter, and I still kind of do to an extent, but he's a bit better than that. But there is still the gimmick aspect of it. I looked at him and I always used to think, all right, there's not a great deal there, you know. Is he even that big a puncher? Jury's out on that. Boxing skills, he looks fairly run-of-the-mill. Went in there against Denzel Bentley. I thought Bentley would win that fight at a canter. I really did. I genuinely was thinking, Bentley is just going to have a field day with this guy. He's going to stop him mid-rounds. That's what I thought. Didn't happen. Nathan Heaney got the win, became British champion. For him, it was like a world title win. Has the fight against Brad Pauls. It was a draw. Some people felt that he just nicked it. Anyway, Goes into this rematch, starts off brilliantly, using his jab, using his footwork, using his movement. It was apparent that he didn't really have the firepower to hurt Brad Pauls, but he was nevertheless still able to outbox him. Going to the fourth round, all looked good. Lazy jab, gets dropped by a right hand. And for me, I know the TNT commentary team will have you believe that, oh, the fight was close. So yeah, it was a nip and tuck. It wasn't really though, was it? It wasn't. Richie Woodhall, I think, had the fight a draw going into the last round. I don't know how he had it a draw going into the last round, to be honest with you, including the 10-8 round in round number 4, because I felt that Brad Pauls was well ahead. I felt that this was his fight. He was winning this fight at a canter. And in round 11, he really put a beating on Nathan Heaney. And as I said in my post-fight review, I felt that Nathan Heaney, the fans urged him on. His heart, because for all his flaws, you can't question the man's heart. He definitely has that in abundance. That kind of drove him on. That kept him going. But the fight was well and truly beaten out of him come round number 12. He went down in round number 12, and that was it. He looked at his corner, and I think, he could have probably got up at the count of 10, but he knew himself the fight was gone at that point. And that was that. That was the fight waved off. Credit to Brad Pauls. He lost to Tyler Denny, I think it was last year, but Tyler Denny, European champion, just beating Felix Cash. So that loss, once you look at it in context, you're like, Tyler Denny's not a bad fighter to be losing. He was a very good fighter as Tyler Denny. And he's come up the hard way. Brad Pauls, he's been on the small hall scene. I think he might have been with Goodwin. I think Goodwin might have been his original promoter if you look back on the old small hall scenes. He fought in Plymouth. Because I definitely thought I saw Goodwin or someone with his team tweeting about it, but maybe he wasn't. But yeah, he came up the small, and he admitted came up the small hall scene, made no money, as a lot of those fighters do. They don't make really anything. If you can't sell tickets, and even then, if you're a big ticket seller, you're kind of relying on sponsors, because yeah, there's lots of small hall shows in Britain, loads of them. Every week you'll find small hall shows, but those fighters, I feel for them. I really do. They have to pay their way to get onto those shows. They have to pay to get on it. They have to try and recoup the money in tickets. If they make a profit, they're doing well, but if it's a profit, you're talking a couple of hundred, maybe $1,000, and some of that has to go to the tax man. It's a small hall scene in Britain and in Ireland as well. It's tough. It's tough. And I would say with some of these small hall fighters, when they do, because a lot of these guys will take big fights on a Matchroom Queensbury show and a boxer show on short notice, and you see them and you're like, oh, they didn't look amazing, and they maybe got stopped, or they had a couple of good rounds in them, and that was it. You say that's not really a true reflection, because they just don't have the backing. And if you're fighting on the small hall scene, you could maybe fight a couple of times a year, but you're having to work full time to pay your own bills at home, and also to pay for your boxing. You're paying for camp, you're paying for the food, the nutrition, you're paying to get on these shows, you're trying to sell as many tickets as you can, you need people to help you with that. It's really, really difficult. I think people look at the glitz and the glamour of boxing, they see the Saudis who are now involved in it, they see all that, and they just think it's just, it's making it rain every day. And then you look at the small hall scene and you're just kind of like, wow. And I've been to plenty small hall shows, and it's crazy, really. You just think, wow, you feel bad for the fighters, because they're paying money out of their own pockets, many times at a loss, just for that opportunity. And again, with some of these fighters, they're very good fighters, but they're on the small hall circuit, so it's not a true reflection. Look at Nick Ball. He was a small hall fighter, and luckily he got signed with Frank Warren. He was able to improve. Maxie Hughes was on the small hall scene, was an away fighter for a long time, got five losses before finally getting some backing. He got backed by a managerial company that's no longer there. Then he got signed by Eddie Hearn, but it meant that he could train full time. He didn't have to work anymore, and you've seen the results. For my money, he beat George Kambosos. Should have been him against Lomachenko. So absolute massive big up to Brad Pauls. Hopefully he can get some more big fights off the back of that. I think he deserves it. I think he's a good little fighter. I really do. He impressed me in that fight. His gas tank, his punching power, everything. I was really impressed at what I seen from him. I really was really impressed. Let's get on to some boxing news. So, Frank Warren and Queensbury are reportedly closing in on a groundbreaking broadcast deal with Dazn that would see them unite with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom on the same platform moving forward. when Warren's contract with TNT expires, some have been refuting that and saying he's committed to TNT. Well, he's committed to TNT because he's contracted with them, but what happens when it ends? You know? And with the way... it was funny because I did a video on this morning, and I seen Turki Al Sheikh. I was saying in the video, Turki Al Sheikh is... He's more the Zone guy than he is, Sky or TNT. The Zone is his network, not in that sense. He doesn't own it, but that you could tell that's his preferential network, the Zone, because TNT is British based. I think TNT Sport is only in Britain, as is Sky, whereas the Zone, global home of boxing, 150 fights per year. Just saying, but it is global, and he is Frank Warren's, I don't want to say Frank Warren's guy, but Frank was the guy who introduced us to Turki Al Sheikh. Eddie Hearn has come along, Ben Shalom seems to be coming along, I think Bob Arum is there as well. So he's and obviously Ben Shalom is still with Sky, Frank Warren is still with TNT, and obviously Bob Arum is still with ESPN, but all their fighters are respectively, when they're fighting in Saudi, they're fighting on the Zone, they're fighting on Sky, they're fighting on TNT, but you see Turki Al Sheikh, that's the platform where he does most of the work on. The interviews with him, they're on the Zone. So that seems to be his platform. And I think he wants to just get his main promoters all on the one platform. At the end of the day, as I said, when you're doing these pay-per-views, the network that you're closest with or you're most comfy with, you want them to have the lion's share. You want them to be the ones doing all the work. When you have TNT, Sky, and the Zone, all three platforms, all three networks working on the same show, doing the pay-per-views, you can look at it and just be like, what the hell? Who's doing what? And I'd say it's a nightmare for the fighters on Fight Week having to give interviews to maybe 3 different broadcasters, 3 different networks, instead of having to just do it right. TNT only, there you go, or the Zone only, there you go. So makes sense. Some would argue, is it a bad thing because it means now, the Zone are literally going to be in charge of pretty much everything, certainly in the UK, 2 main promoters in the UK on there. Don't know what Ben Shalom is going to do when a Sky deal comes up. I was saying he should be worried, Ben Shalom, when that Sky deal comes up, because I can't see Sky renewing it. But if he's in good with the Saudis and he's able to work with them, his fighters are able to get well paid, he's able to gain a relationship with Turki Al Sheikh, a business relationship, then he could be looking at Sky and thinking, actually, I don't need you. The same way you say you don't need me, well, I don't need you. I'm bringing my platform, I'm bringing my fighters to the Zone. I'm bringing them to Turki Al Sheikh in Saudi Arabia. I could easily see that happen. Is this the first sign that it's going to happen? I said before, I'll say it again, it was only about 2 years ago on Seconds Out, Frank Warren was calling the Zone Dead Zone and saying Box Nation in their heyday, certainly in the UK, had more subscribers, and now it's likely he's going to be going over there. There you go. So we'll watch that very, very carefully. At the end of the day, he's on TNT for another year. I think that the Zone, the model certainly for boxing, if Turki Al Sheikh and the Zone are able to get more promoters, could be a good thing. They still need the Zone, I think, more sports on there. They're getting plenty. There's NFL on there. There's plenty of other sports. But I look at Eddie Hearn, and Eddie Hearn has talked about this in interviews as well, not in boxing related, but darts. I think the contract with Sky, if it's not up this year, I think it is up this year actually. And we've heard stories, certainly the darts end, that, negotiations are going along and this, that, and the other. If they can get darts on the Zone, that's going to be a big one. I think darts it is already on the Zone, PDC darts. But obviously in different countries, I think Spain and the Netherlands, places like that, it's on the Zone. But obviously in the UK, it's still ITV and Sky Sports. If they can get the darts on the Zone, that's a big move. That'd be a big move. That will help. Football is the main thing they need in the Zone. They do have football on the Zone. They have the Saudi Arabian League. They have female football for those who like that. But they don't have Premier League football. Premier League football is a must. Even if... Does anyone remember, what was the name of the channel? It was Sky Sports' attempt to make football pay-per-view. I think it lasted about Premier Plus. Was it Premier Plus or what was it called? But they used to... Sky Sports back in that, now I mean way 20 years ago back in the day, they used to do pay-per-view games at least once a week. Yeah, that didn't last too long. It did. I'm pretty sure it was called Premier Plus. I remember it well. I remember it well because you used to see all the ads for it, and it used to. I think it used to be the late kickoff. Could have been the late kickoff on a Saturday or one of the games on a Sunday, but they used to do. I remember it well, and Premier Plus, I think it was called. Didn't last long. Anyway, the long and the short of it. But would they look at doing something like that? Maybe taking Premier League games and putting them behind a paywall? They would be obviously behind a paywall. Again, I'm just thinking out loud. I'm going off the topic of boxing here, so we'll bring it back to boxing. But that's Frank Warren, the situation there. Gervonta Davis versus Vasyl Lomachenko is now reportedly off. Lomachenko has decided to take some time away from boxing this year. Potential options for Tank Davis are Shakur Stevenson, Zepeda, and Isaac Cruz rematch. Obviously, Cruz has his fight coming up now in a fortnight's time, and there is talk that Shakur and Zepeda could be fighting next, in which case that does kind of leave Tank Davis a bit out in the wilderness. And I said that it's a duck by Lomachenko. I think it is. If the fight is there and it's available and you're not taking it, and you've nothing. You see, here's the thing, right? For me, when someone is ducking, right? So I'll give you an example. When Isaac Chamberlain signed up, it wasn't Jack Massey at the time, it was Seslak. But when he had a mandatory in Chef Clark, and he signed up to fight, at the time it was Seslak for the European title, I didn't consider that a duck. I didn't, and I'll tell you why, because he would have been defending his British title against Chev Clark, fair enough. But instead he was taking, in my eyes, a tougher fight for a greater prize, a European title. So for that, I would say, no, I'm not going to call that a duck. All right? And I like Isaac Chamberlain. I think he's a cool guy. I don't consider that a duck. Because you are actually taking, on paper, a harder fight. And Jack Massey ended up being a harder fight. He lost that fight for a greater prize. Now, if you are someone like Adam Nazem, and you win a European title, and your mandatory is Dalton Smith, and instead of defending that title, you don't go on to world. See, if he went on to world level and maybe push for an eliminator or a world title fight, I'd say not a duck. He's trying. He's actually taking harder fights on paper for greater rewards. There's still no word on the Eubank fight, but apparently he's going to be fighting Harlem Eubank, and Harlem Eubank has never even won a British title, so that's a duck. That's a duck. That's a complete duck. With Loma, he's taking time away. He's not taking a harder fight. He's a champion. He's not looking to unify. So that's a duck. It's the same way Tank Davis was ducking Lomachenko a few years ago. When he won his title, he doesn't need to fight Lomachenko. Why does he need to fight Lomachenko? He's a champion. Surely he should be looking to unify. Why can't he fight Lomachenko? So, yeah, shoes on the other foot this time. And I'll say it like it is. Yes, Lomachenko. See, Lomachenko, yes, he has one foot out the door. He's 36 years old. But at the end of the day, he's still a champion. You know, that's like... All right, look, if Alexander Usyk say he beats Tyson Fury, and let's say Anthony Joshua beats Daniel Dubois, and they're looking to unify, right? If the unification is on the table and Alexander Usyk decides, I'm not going to retire, I'm going to keep these belts, but I'm going to fight Derek Chisora in a rematch, I'd be like, well, that's a duck. Why are you not trying to become undisputed again? I don't think he would. Obviously, if it came to, I don't think he would. But you get what I mean. You know, it's like Canelo with Benavidez. It's like, no, he's your mandatory. You're a champion. Why should you be able to say, well, I fought all these guys in the past, so that means I don't have to fight Benavidez? You're like, no, you're a champion. You're a champion. He's your challenger. There you go. So yeah, I do consider. Look, I consider it a duck. I think Loma. I think he's got one foot out the door, to be honest with you. I did see this fight yesterday. Junto Nakatani knocking out Vincent Astrobilo. Sickening body shot. Sickening body shot. He actually got back up and then went straight back down again. It was a delayed reaction, and it looked... You know, one of those body shots that just looked painful. Junte Nakatani, I can't see him losing. I can't see him losing at bantamweight, and him against Inoue. Oh, imagine how big that fight would be in Japan. It would be massive in Japan. It would be flipping phenomenal. So maybe one day. They're only a weight division apart, to be fair. Carl Froch and Anthony Joshua have now settled their feud. Froch revealed I think we're seeing eye to eye. We had a good exchange of messages. He's got respect for me. I've got a lot of respect for him, and I wish him well. He actually said he'd be coming on my channel in the near future. Okay, so all that beef is apparently squashed now, is it? Until next time. Until next time. Look, I did think it was just, it sounded more like Carl Froch was just sour, you know, at the end of the day. And I think maybe, I'm not saying he watched any of the videos or anything like that, but when you look at their careers, it's not too different. It's not too dissimilar. You know, Carl Froch is a 3-time super middleweight world champion. 2 of those titles were vacant that he won. You know, one of them was coming off the back of a loss to Mikhail Kessler. So it's for me, it's kind of like, you know, why would you critique Joshua for fighting for a vacant title against Dubois? And, you know, you always big up Rob McCracken. Okay, fair enough. He was your trainer for many, many years. But you critique Anthony Joshua for fighting Charles Martin, but you praise Rob McCracken for taking him to a world title. Make that make sense. Oh, Joshua's no good. He beat an easy champion. But Rob McCracken's brilliant for getting him to the title anyway. Well, if Charles Martin was such a bad champion, why should we praise Rob McCracken for him getting the win? Surely Stevie Wonder could have been in the corner and said, see what you did there? And he would have still won, you know? So Carl Froch squashed the beef with Anthony Joshua for how long? Let's see. Robert Helenius has been banned from boxing for 2 years after his positive test for clomiphene. Apparently he went down to Conor Ben Road. Robert Helenius, and shock horror, UCAD didn't buy it. I makes you wonder why Conor Ben hasn't done anything with UCAD yet that we know of. So he's banned for 2 years. Listen, I can't envision Robert Helenius doing much else, to be honest with you, in the sport of boxing. He was never amazing to begin with. He could always punch, but right now, I mean, Robert Helenius, he was done before the Joshua fight. He was done before the Wilder fight. All right, so I'd say he's well and truly done now. Andy Ruiz has told reporters that he wants the Joseph Parker rematch next when he beats Jarrell Miller on the undercard of Crawford versus Majimov. You know, we need to talk about Andy Ruiz. I said it once, I'll say it again. He is looking big. Now, he's always looked big. He's not Slim Jim. He's not the body beautiful type. But in the run-up to this fight, he is looking big. And I'm thinking, right, what is he going to weigh in? And it is making me think and look at this fight, because I'm looking at it and I'm like, right, Andy Ruiz is out of the ring for best part of 2 years. He's probably going to be heavier than ever. How is he actually going to be looking? And it's all well and good if he starts releasing clips of himself hitting the pads and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm not going to buy that as though Ruiz is just, you know, firing on all cylinders. He's not getting any younger. He's been painfully inactive over the last 5 years. The Joshua rematch was December 2019. He fought once in 2021 and once in 2022, and this will be his first fight now. So in the space of nearly 5 years, he's had 3 fights. That's just not good enough. That's a waste, really, a waste of talent. And yeah, he's looking big, and God knows how he's going to look on fight night. It's going to be a real interesting watch. In terms of everything else, I think that is pretty much it, lads. I will leave it there. It's going to be a busy week this week. We got to do a preview and prediction for Chisora versus Joyce. Listen, I need some good news this week. I hope I get some good news this week. Let me know in the comments section your thoughts on everything, and smash the like button. Fingers crossed we get some. I've got hoping for some good news this week. I need it. I flipping need it, lads. So let's go with some good wishes, please. Let me know your thoughts and everything in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed the video. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course. As always, people, if you haven't already. And as always, lads, peace.